Well, welcome everyone. We are actually going to be covering some really exciting stuff today. CAR and DocuSign have actually put together a contract to where now we can access all of our contracts within the DocuSign platform without even having to log into Zip Forms. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and let's do it. So I went ahead and started in commands. Now, you guys, if you haven't signed up for your DocuSign account, you got to do that first. So you can do that by going over to the top right of your command screen and clicking on your name, and we're going to drop into the settings. Now, once you get there, you should see that DocuSign is the very top option. If you do not see it, just scroll down a little bit and you should see a transaction or compliance dropdown where you will see this available. Now, I already have mine connected, but you will see a connect account here where you will then be able to actually share your email. It's going to ask for your first and last name, of course, and then it will send a registration link to your email to finish out that process. Now, we do have a video on that, so I'll make sure that that's included for everyone just so they can check it out. And perfect. So now that we have that all connected, we are now going to walk through some of this process. So we always say that the best work through is going to be starting with the opportunities platform. And if you guys are familiar with opportunities, this is actually your sales pipeline. So again, this really maps out exactly where each client is in their step in their real estate process and their home journey. So we do want to make sure that we are kind of tracking that. And the cool thing, this will also count as your compliance portal as well. So you're going to find your transaction checklist in each opportunity. And then also you'll be able to add things, submit it to the Market Center for compliance, and you'll actually get some feedback from our file review coordinators. So let's walk through how to just create an opportunity if you guys have never done it. First of all, the very first step is you're going to have at least have a contact record. So it is actually required that you do pull in a contact. So if you haven't done that, go right over to the contact section. You'll actually see an add contact button. Just go ahead and add a contact really quick and then come back to this point. From here, we're just going to go up to the Create Opportunity button up at the top right. And once we click on that, it should go ahead and start populating some info for you. So automatically, we're going to see your Market Center name. If you are a part of a team, you will see your team name populate here. But since Ty isn't a part of a team, it's just left blank and kind of grayed out. Now, you'll see that the next field is going to be an opportunity type. So again, is this a buyer or is this a seller? So for me, we're just going to do a buyer for this one. But then if you did have a listing, go ahead and choose that. And then these are going to be closer towards like tenants and leases and stuff like that. So if you do that, you can also have those available. I'm just going to switch to a buyer opportunity. And then it's going to ask for the client name. Now, again, this is where our contact is required for this. So for example, if I were to use my husband, Spencer Toprich, you can see that he's not popping up because he's technically not in Ty's database. So when you do that, we're just going to actually type in myself because I know that I'm definitely in Ty's. And you can see I am in this drop-down menu here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that, and then I can move on. Now, the cool thing, I can go ahead and add in a co-buyer if I do have them. But again, you do need to add them as a contact to make sure that they are getting added into the transaction. And this can always be added in later. Now, you can see here we have an opportunity name. It's automatically put in the client name with buyer behind it. Now, for buyer opportunities, you won't know what the transaction address is going to be right off the bat. So I wouldn't worry about changing this too much, but you do want to change this later on, which you can. From here, we can put in custom tags, close date, time frame, budget, etc. But we do need to at least put in the commission rate. So for me, I'm just going to go ahead and put 2.5%, because again, this will only be your side of the transaction. So even if you're on a list side, and technically the total commission is 6% or 5%, you still would want to put in your percentage that you will get after close. From here, we're going to have an opportunity phase and stage. Now the phases are going to be these actually little bubbles here. So you can see that we're currently on cultivate, which is right here. So that means that you're in talks, but necessarily haven't had an appointment yet. I'm just going to go ahead and switch this to active. And let's say that I am actually in the showing stage. And that's going to be perfect because again, I want to write an offer at this point. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead and click save or create transaction. And as you can see, once I did that, it's pulled me into the opportunities detail page. So based off of what I put in, you can see here that a lot of it is populating for me. Now I would go ahead and say that it's going to be important for you to go ahead and fill out this information, but you can also fill this out inside of the DocuSign platform as well. But if you have an idea of what that property name is or address, go ahead and put it in, and then same thing with your agreement dates and whatnot. So we're going to move on. So from here, we're actually going to start going into DocuSign now. So we're going to come over to this Documents tab. And once we click in there, you'll actually see that there's going to be a checklist populating. Now, since I'm in a buyer opportunity, the consultation checklist is blank because most of my contracts are going to be under contract when I actually have the transaction. So if I go to the under contract section, you can see here that I do have quite a bit of disclosures that are readily available for me. So I can go ahead and actually check this out. Now, let's say that I want to go ahead and start adding some documents in here. I'm going to go ahead and start a new DocuSign room for this. So the best way is you can see that there is a start a transaction button up at the top right of this checklist. We're just going to go ahead and click on that and select DocuSign from the dropdown. Now, as long as you went ahead and authorized your account through the settings, this should be readily available. If for some reason you don't see that start a transaction button, please reach out to either me or Amy, and we can go ahead and get that resolved for you because we do want you to have that available. So from here, it's going to actually ask us to log into DocuSign. And so since I am posing as Ty for today, I'm going to go ahead and log in as him. Now, as you can see, it just went ahead and populated a new DocuSign room. So if we look back, you can see up at the top left that here's my opportunity name. We named it Jessica Hancock Buyer. And again, I could change that again if I wanted to, or change it in the opportunity section. Now, right now, I don't really have any DocuSign contracts. So we're going to actually add some in. But the first thing that we do need to take care of is making sure that our California of Association of Realtors connection is integrated into our account. So to do that, we're going to come up to the top right where you either see your photo or you're going to see your two initials there. We're going to click in and we're going to go to preferences. Now, once we're here, you're going to see that on the left-hand side, we do have an integrations menu. So once we click on that, and I already have mine connected right here, as you can see, I'm actually going to go ahead and take that out really quick. But you're going to see an add provider button under DocuSign forms. Now you will see a zip form option. We do not want to use that again, because we're going to be using DocuSign forms instead. So once we click on add provider, you'll actually see that the California of Association Realtors is there. So we're going to click in. And what it's going to ask for is our NERDS ID. So your NRDS ID is actually your National Association of Realtor identification number that they give to you when you sign up. So if you don't know what that is, there is a really easy way to check that. So what you'll want to do, open up a new tab, and then we're going to go to nar.realtor. Kind of a funny URL, but it works. And then right in the search bar, we're just going to type in NRDS, and that's it. We're going to click search, and you'll find that the very first link that pops up is your find NRDS number. So we're going to click on that, and it's going to ask you for a few things. So it's going to ask for your last name and your real estate license number. So when you click on that, we're going to go ahead and do Stuart. And then I'm all of a sudden forgetting Ty's number. I can pull that up really quick. So we're going to do 0144577. Then once you hit submit, it should go ahead and give you that ID right off the bat. So we can go ahead and copy it, and then we can come back to DocuSign and paste that in. And then it'll just ask for your last name that matches on your California DRE license. Once we hit validate, we are now ready to go. It may ask you, since I already did this before, it may ask you to accept some terms and agreements. Go ahead and accept those. That will just go ahead and make sure that you are allowed to use the CAR forms available to us. Now, if you don't do this, again, you will not be able to use these forms. So it's really important that you're taking care of this integration ahead of putting in any contracts into your DocuSign room. And again, if you aren't a member of CAR or NAR, become a member. This is one of the things that is required to become a full-fledged realtor. So again, you cannot sign any contracts unless you are associated with these associations. So make sure that you get that done ahead of time. If you need help with those applications and whatnot, I'm a pretty good resource. I've done the compliance portion for a long time. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions filling those out. But now that we have this all connected, we can actually go back to our room and start putting in some contracts. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to switch back to rooms over here. You could also go to your dashboard and it would show it off. But right here is my new buyer transaction that I just created. And again, it will give you a timestamp as well. So you can see that this was created on November 15th. So this is the one that we want to work off of. So once we click into that, it's going to bring us right to the detailed page. And so this is actually a really important page for us to fill out because again, this page will make sure that all of our contracts are being pre-populated with information. So what we can do is we can click on the top right where we have this edit pencil, and then it will allow us to start editing some of these things. So you can see here that we do have the name of the opportunity. You can switch it up if you want to. And then we do have some room information. So right here, we do have local currency. I'm just going to set that to United States dollar. And then there's a couple other things like MLS ID. So let's say that you do have an MLS number. Let's say that you are ready to sign contracts or you already have an accepted offer. You can go ahead and put in whatever that MLS ID is into that field. Moving on, there's a couple other fields like origin of lead that you can put in, company room status. These aren't necessarily the most important thing, but let's say that I made an offer already, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Now, right here, we do have a location name. So again, this will be the property for the transaction once you go under escrow. So if you don't have that information for a buyer quite yet, don't worry about it. But for sellers, you definitely will have this information ahead of time. For now, I'm just going to put in 123 Main Street, Suite 1 in San Diego, California. And then there is a county field here. So again, that's San Diego County. And then we do have state drop downs where you can go ahead and put in whatever you need to. Next, we do have property types. So again, is it residential detached? Most of them will be, but you do also have those condominiums for those units and whatnot. You also do have the residential attached as well. So this will be a detached home. I'm just going to go ahead and set the year to 1999. And then there is special circumstances like contingencies and stuff like that. So if this is one of those cases, just make sure to put that in. Next, I'm going to go ahead and scroll up a little bit more. because on the right-hand side, we do have some seller one, seller two, buyer one, and buyer two information. So you can see here, we do have a seller one. So again, I'm just going to pretend that I am in this transaction and we're going under escrow. So I do want to write this in. So this will be my Joe Schmo. And then I will go ahead and put in their cell phone number. Moving on, you will want to go ahead and put in some sort of email address for them. Again, if you do have these email addresses ahead of time, this will just ensure that any contracts will be sent out for signature for them. So if you do have those emails, just make sure to pop those in. You can go ahead and populate the address if you want to. Again, since this is the seller information, it's going to be the same as the address. There we go. And then we're moving on. Now I just went ahead and filled out seller one, but as you can see, we also have offer details here as well. So let's say that I went ahead and made an offer for today and I got my lights turned off. There we go. And then we also have a contract amount. So let's say that I'm paying $725. I could go ahead and put in any earnest money information here as well. Local contract amount should be about the same. Same thing with the local earnest as well. Contract date. So let's say this is the date that we actually got it signed. Again, that will be the same as 12. More earnest money, binding dates, contingency removals. So again, if this actually pertains to your transaction, just go ahead and put it in. And then again, appraisal contingency, loan contingency, stuff like that, you can fill them out based off of the transaction that you're in. And then you do have an expected close date. So since we went ahead and went under contract on the 12th, I will do a standard 31 day, which will be just around the 10th, but most likely the 13th of December. You can put in your financing options if you want here. This will just be a regular conventional, and then we can move on. Now we have seller two. So this will be Mary Schmo. And then you can go ahead and put in whatever email address for that person as well. I'm just going to ahead and move on since we already have that information for seller one. And then again, you do have seller concessions, commissions, buyer side, stuff like that. So again, this will be your side, which is 2.5. If the sellers or list side, you have that information too at 2.5, you can go ahead and do that. If you do have any referrals, just go ahead and put in that amount here as well. And then property details like tax IDs and tax information as well. So let's say that I had 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, total of 8 rooms total, and then 1 garage space. And this is a 2,000 square foot house. Next, we do have the listing agent, as you can see here. So I'm just going to scroll up slightly just to make sure I haven't passed anything. And then also you can go ahead and collapse these once they're done as well, just to make sure that you have those taken care of. Now from here, we do have a list agent. So for me, this will just be, I'm just going to call Will Finney, my listing agent. And then I can go ahead and put in his business line here as well. Put in the email address. And then you can also put in some additional information like their company name and whatnot. Next, we do have a listing agent who field. Now, again, if there's not a second agent, don't fill that out. But sometimes there's team members who do list for their other rainmakers and stuff like that. So you may want to put that in if it applies. Next, we do have buyer one. So the cool thing, and I want to minimize seller one really quick. Since we went ahead and had this information in command already, remember, we created the opportunity for myself under command. So you can see here that my information from that contact card is already pulling in from command itself. So it pulled in my name and my email address. Now, if I also had my cell phone number, it would pull that in for me as well. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. But then I can go ahead and move on. I'm just going to go ahead and add in my info as well. Now all of you can send me your pretty mailers. Perfect. Now, once you have that filled out, collapse it again. And then again, if you do have a buyer too, just go ahead and pop their name in. And then you would do the same thing, just fill out that info. The more complete these fields are, the better that the contracts are going to pull these in. So it is safer to fill in more information than not. And then you'll learn as you go on which field populate the best as well. Now moving forward, you can see that the buyer agent is next. So you can see Ty's information is already pulling in. So again, since Ty is technically our buyer agent and the account that we're working off of, all of that information is going to come in ahead of time. So you don't have to worry about filling this out. And then we don't have a buyer two for this situation or buyer agent two. So that means we're done. So what we can do is we want to make sure that we're clicking the save button down at the bottom right. This will just ensure that all of this information is being saved for us and we don't have to come back in and re-enter this later. Now that this is done, we can actually switch over to the Documents tab. So again, we're on Details over on the left-hand side. So Documents is right next to it. Once we click into there, we can now actually start adding in some contracts. So there's a couple of different things that we can do. We can just upload contracts straight to the room from your computer. That's totally fine. Or we can click on this add button up at the top right corner. And you'll see that there is a DocuSign Forms option there. Now, again, computer is also there. So straight up uploads you can do. Or if you do DocuSign Forms, you can click on that. And this is why we wanted to make sure that our integration with CAR was available ahead of time, because this library will now become available to us. So we can actually click on it. If you don't see it, all of the forms pop up for you right away. And then we can go ahead and add in what we want. So for this, I'm actually, the very first one I'm going to add in is the transaction cover sheet. Now, again, for you practicing agents, if you don't know what the transaction cover sheet is, you should really know, because this will save you a lot of time. Again, every bit of information that's entered into this sheet will populate across the board on all of your contracts. So this is very convenient, and we'll show you how that works in just a sec. I'm just going to go ahead and grab the RPA. And we'll grab that here. And then the cool thing, we can actually choose which RPA as well. There's actually an RPA template, so we can pop that in, no problem. And then I'm just going to go ahead and grab agency disclosure as well. Once I do that, I can go ahead and click add selected. And as you can see, those three forms are now available for me. So now what I can do is I'm going to start with this TCS, again, the transaction cover sheet, and I'm just going to click into it. And this is going to allow me to actually edit these fields inside of this contract. Perfect. So as you can see, since I went ahead and filled in the details page, you can see that a lot of this information is already pre-populating for me, which makes it really convenient to get this done quickly. So again, all of this information is pulling in through that details page. So now I just need to edit and finish out the details of whatever I'm missing. So again, if I needed some additional phone numbers, fax numbers, social security, stuff like that, I can go ahead and add in. Same thing with the address. Let's say that Mary Schmo didn't have it. I can go ahead and add her in over here and just make sure that that's filled out properly. And then moving on, if I needed to add in any tax ID information, list date, list price, let's say that it was listed on the 1st. It was listed for originally just 7,000 or 700,000. Listing expiration date, we'll go ahead and push that out to February 1st. Other things like that, liens, Encumbrances, property includes, excludes, any homeowner association dues, we want to make sure that's included. So let's say there's 400 amount monthly, close date, stuff like that. We'll go ahead and add in. Again, we were shooting for the 13th of December. And then again, you would just continue and fill out whatever information you need to. Property type, that's a residential. Unit number, this is suite 1. Lock pad, you name it. And then same thing with escrow information. Let's say that I was using our in-house, that would be North Inland Escrow. If you were using this at La Jolla, this would be Calcos. And then you can go ahead and put in whatever escrow number you need to. Put in officer name, stuff like that, because again, this will populate for you on the other end. Now I'm going to say that this is filled out properly and I have all of my information because again, I want to show you exactly how you can send everything out A through Z. So again, I'm just going to go ahead and close this just for the time being, make sure that you guys know exactly where we're running. So we're going to click save and close. And again, we want to make sure that we hit that save and close button because it will ensure that all of our changes are being written over what we previously had. And now that's ready to go. So what I can do is if I would really want to check and make sure that my contracts are populating fully, I can actually click into my agency disclosure and also my RPA to make sure that any fields are included in. There we go. And as you can see, a lot of that info is pulling through just fine for me. So I can go ahead and start marking off anything that I need to as well. So in my RPA, if I had any of this information that I need to make sure was a part of, for example, the seller's brokerage firm, Keller Williams Realty, we want to make sure that that license number meets it in there. So for us at Sabre Springs, that's 01870514. And then if it was over at La Jolla, you would go ahead and make sure that that's put in as well. For the seller's agent, we got Will Finney. So I would want to make sure that his license number is put in there. I'm not sure what that one is off the top of my head, but again, we'll do something along this lines just to fill it in. And then moving on, we can see here that Will is just the seller's agent. So we would want to go ahead and start checking some of this off. Then same thing down here. And then just moving on. So again, you're just filling in your contract as you would like. And then again, if I went ahead and said that this was done and all I needed to do, again, putting in whatever terms I need to. Same thing with allocations of costs like that. We would just go ahead and hit save and close after this point. And we'll watch it spin for a second while we wait. And that's it. So once your contract is all filled out, we can now have this ready off and sent. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I can either just choose one of my contracts or I can select multiple at a time. If you want to do multiple at a time, just make sure to check off the boxes up at the top left corner of each of those contracts, and that will select multiple. Now, if you just wanted to do one, all you have to do is just right click actually, and there is a create envelope button for you to go ahead and use. Now, if you wanted to do multiples, again, that bulk action is up here that pops up right next to the search bar, and the pen icon will always be your create envelope button. So once we click on that, it should redirect us over to go ahead and start sending out an envelope. Perfect. So as you can see, it popped us into this envelope creation. So we now just have these two contracts that we're sending off. Now we do have a envelope name. So this one will be internal. So this one's just for you. So let's say that this was, Hancock, RPA, offer, whatever you'd like to name it, 4123 Main Street. And then what I can do is, since I do have these two contracts here, I can also view them really quickly. and it will show me what that looks like. And again, if I for any reason missed this, I could go back, actually save and close, and then make additional edits in the room, and then come back and re-add these in. So what I can do, go ahead and send this off to someone. I'm just going to go ahead and click this add recipient button. And then the option that you're going to want to choose is going to be pre-tagged roles. Now, if we choose the pre-tagged roles, that will ensure that all of our signatures are matched with the correct people. So that's really important if you want to make sure that this is as streamlined as possible for you. If you just choose the email address, again, that will not populate anything. So you would have to manually add in whatever field you want. So we do want to click off pre-tagged roles. It should pop up with this little pop-up for you. And then you can see here we have buyer 1, buyer 2, seller 1, seller 2, and then of course our agent information. So if we actually come over, there's a drop down for the recipient next to those roles. So we can click on the select option and then choose who we need to. Now, since I am the buyer, I can go ahead and select my info here. And then for buyer 2, I do have my husband, Spencer. Now, same thing with seller 1 and seller 2. We would go ahead and make sure that Joe Schmo was there, and then Mary Schmo. And then if I did need to go ahead and pop in buyer agents, anything like that. So Will Finney is my, actually Ty is our buyer's agent. And then Will Finney is our seller's agent. So we can go ahead and pop him in there. We can put in escrow, but since we don't really have any escrow related fields here, I'm going to go ahead and add selected. Now, once we do that, you should start it seeing to populate and add in our recipients. And there we go. That's everyone. So again, if for any reason I didn't want everyone here, I won't need the seller signatures for this time. So I can go ahead and get rid of those. And then same thing with the listing agent for now. I'm just going to send these to my buyers so they can sign off on the RPA and we can get it sent over to the seller. So from here, you can see we have buyer 1, buyer 2, and buyer agent. And you see a 1 next to each of their names. Now, this 1 represents the sending order. So if you can guess it, the 1 means that each of these people will receive the same envelope at the same time. Now, let's say that we wanted to make sure that our, I sign first and Spencer signs second. I can go ahead and switch the signing order if I need to by just deleting that 1 and putting a 2 here. That will ensure, and you'll see it switch, that Spencer is the last one to receive this envelope. So he wants to make sure that my signatures are there first before he signs anything. So again, that's going to be really important, especially for like your escrow officers. If you add them in here, they don't want blank contracts, they want the signed ones. So just make sure that they're on the bottom of that list for receiving order. And then again, let's say that we did have someone who just needed to receive a copy. Ty is a great example of that. We can go ahead and switch this needs to sign dropdown over to receives a copy. And this will just ensure that, he's just receiving the completed forms after this is signed. Now, the next step after this is, again, we need to actually create an email subject. So again, this is going to be the residential. And again, this is going to be the email subject that your clients receive. So this will be residential purchase agreement for 123 Main Street. So again, you want to make sure it's something recognizable for your client so they know exactly where to go. And then you can go ahead and put in some sort of message for them. Just, hello, Jessica, please sign following contracts and let me know if you have any questions. And then you can go ahead and add in whatever you need to. So once we're done with that, we can go ahead and continue on to the actual contract section where we see signatures. So we're going to click the next up at the top right corner. It's that yellow button. And this is where we can actually add in some additional fields if we need to. So from here, you can see on the right-hand side, we've got some page thumbnails, and you'll notice that we have these little color-coded carets. This will actually show off who is signing off on each of these forms. Now, if we notice over at the top left that my name has a yellow dot next to it, that actually means that any tag on the right that has a yellow caret, I have a signature line there at least. So I can actually switch that if I need to. You can see Spencer is the only other person who has signatures, which he is in blue. So let's go ahead and scroll through and just make sure that my signatures are there. And again, since we use those pre-tagged roles, those buyer initials for buyer 1 and buyer 2 are going to pre-populate for us since we're utilizing them. So again, you want to make sure that you're going through the pre-tagged roles instead of using just the email address, because you would have to add these in manually. So if we scroll down more, again, I'm just ensuring that all of my buyer initials and signatures are populating as usual. Good, good. And I would always suggest going through and just making sure that any signatures are there where you know that they need to be, just to ensure that you don't have to re-enter any of this later down the line during file review. Now here's the bottom of the page where we actually have date signed and buyer information. So that's looking really good. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down, additional signatures, stuff like that. And then here's our AD form, which also has these signatures also. So you can see here that it kind of shifted it a little bit. So I'm actually I can actually drag a box around these and move them if I want. And that'll just shift those down a little bit. And that's it. So let's say that I needed to add in some additional fields, especially like right here where it says agent and it doesn't have much information here. I can go ahead and pre-populate that myself. So right here, you can see we have some fields on the left-hand side to choose from. So we have text. I would suggest this for any type of fields that you need to fill in. And so once you put that in, just double click on it and you can edit it. So it says that this is going to be the real estate broker firm. So this will be a Keller Williams Realty. And then I can drag this guy out a little bit if I need to. There we go. And then you can go ahead and drag another text box for the DRE number. There's also an add text box over here on the right if you would use that instead. And that looks good. So now we're going to go ahead and put in the salesperson or broker associate. And so for this one will be for Ty Stewart. And then I can go ahead and add in his license number. And then I would just go ahead and add in a date signed here as well, just because again, that will pre-populate once the buyer actually signs this off. And then that's it. So once I'm done with that, I feel good about these signatures and the fields all being populated. I would just go ahead and double check one more time on how everything is looking. And then once you're done, we can go ahead and click send. And so once we do that, you will actually see that a new envelope will populate in the envelopes tab of your opportunity and DocuSign room. So the cool thing about this, again, if you're familiar with DocuSign, you can actually click on this. It'll also let you know that we're waiting for others to sign this. But when we click, we can actually see who exactly is the current view. So you can see that it's stuck on Jessica right now. And she hasn't even looked at it. So the cool thing with DocuSign is if I actually opened up the email, let's say right here. So let's say if I click this review documents button, I'm just gonna click it really fast. That looks good. So let me go ahead and actually refresh the page so we can see. So it looks like DocuSign's being a little bit slow, but since I went ahead and opened up this document as the consumer and as the client, eventually this portion of DocuSign will actually say that I viewed this at a certain time. So the cool thing, you can actually check out if someone's kind of lagging on your signatures. So if you need to have a conversation with your clients, just say, please let me know if you have any questions in regards to the contracts I sent out. Is there anything that, you're feeling uncomfortable about or you're getting stuck on? And we can work through that together. So it's a really great tool to just kind of see where you're at on this. But again, once all the contracts are filled out, you'll actually see this populate. And I'm actually going to go ahead and correct this really quick. I'm going to delete Spencer out just for the time being, so you can see exactly what happens once we sign out all of these contracts. I apologize for that phone noise if you hear it. So I'm just going to go ahead.
Hold of you.
I know, seriously, I'm everyone's biggest fan for some reason. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign these off just really quick, just so we can get an idea of what these look like. Well, that was a lot. Oh, and because I corrected the DocuSign, it does send another confirmation or a new email with the corrected forms. So that's just something to put into consideration. If you do correct your envelope, it will ask your clients to use the new link versus the old one. So if they're having troubles with that, just know that they will need to do the new link instead. Perfect. So now that I've signed that off, I'm just going to close that. And I'm going to come back over to my Documents tab. I'm actually just going to refresh the page real fast just so you can see what that looks like. And it looks like this is delaying slightly. So you can see that it says that I'm still looking to sign it off. But let's go to the Documents tab and see if those documents actually came through. And there it is. So you can see that we did actually get completed documents. So you'll see here that there's actually going to be a green icon on any of these signed documents. So you have one here and one here. Now, what I would suggest, if you do want to make sure that this is really segmented out and you want to know, your templates versus your signed contracts, I definitely recommend adding a new folder. So what you can do is, I believe you can come over to Actions on the right, and there is an Add Folder option. So once we do that, we can go ahead and say this is signed contracts, and I can hit Create. Now you can see that we have this little field here. And what I can do is I can actually just drag these guys up into this box. So once you see that bluish highlight happen, you can go ahead and release, and that will drag it right up into that area. Now you can see that we do have a little bit of a cleaner setup to where we can check out all of our contracts that have been signed versus the ones that are still in need of signatures. So now, this is how we can send out as many contracts as we'd like, fill it out really properly and everything. But the best part is actually the compliance portion after the fact as well. So now that we actually have our signed contracts, we can actually add these straight into Command without the need of you can either have your transaction coordinator do this for you, or if you feel inclined, you can do this yourself as well. It's really that easy. So if we actually go back over to Command, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the page real quick, just so it grabs all of those signed contracts. But you can see over here that we do have attached files from DocuSign. We also do have a computer dropdown for that if you just want to do manually. But Since we do have the DocuSign connection in command, we can actually just pull it straight from that program. So from here, we do have DocuSign, and we need to choose a working folder. So for this one, this is why we want to make sure that we have a signed contracts folder, so you don't get confused on which ones are signed versus which ones aren't. So I can go ahead and just click sign contracts. And now these little select drop downs are available for me to add in whatever I need to. So right here, we do have the agency disclosure. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. You can see here that we have car AD disclosure regarding real estate agency. So I can actually go ahead and just plop that in. It's going to take a second, but now my document has been successfully added into this opportunity. So I can actually click on this now and view the completed form, no problem. So again, it makes it really easy to get these contracts ready for signature and also sent for compliance as well. I can then come down to the RPA, hit that select drop down, and select the RPA from that list also. And it's just as simple as that. And as you can see, all of those fields are populated for me, which is beautiful. And then I can go ahead and submit this for review. So the cool thing, I can go ahead and just click this submit to MC button. And again, this will go ahead and trigger our compliance coordinator to just make sure that all of the signatures are good on your forms. But then that's it. You'll start hearing communication back from one of our compliance coordinators, letting you know if there's any signatures missing, or if you're good to go on that point. But this really is the best work through for KW DocuSign, and making sure that all of your contracts have everything that they need in them. So I know that we covered a lot in about 50 minutes. So we understand that this is a new process. It's going to take you guys a little bit of time to learn this. So please, if you have any questions, please reach out to me directly if you need assistance with this, because we know that it's going to be a little bit of time. We're actually building out and developing a DocuSign learning campaign as well. So if you would like to be a part of that campaign, we'll probably shoot you guys a video every few days of how you guys can really learn DocuSign in a bite-sized chunk so you don't have to spin your wheels on how to learn this in one day. So please let me know if you guys have any questions, but until then, we'll see you guys next time. And thanks for joining.